Welcome into WarUp on the WPIAL. Greg Warnock alongside Jeff Upson as we're here to recap a lot of wrestling action for you from this past weekend. So we're going to get right to it. Also have a special guest joining us here in just a little bit. But first, Jeff, obviously welcome. And second off, you were at the Midwinter Mayhem all weekend long. For the WPIAL's purpose, a lot of great wrestling there, but three different county tournaments. That ties up most of the WPIL as far as wrestling action from this past weekend. North Allegheny, the only team wrestling in the Midwinter Mayhem side, and they had three wrestlers who ended up medaling. Nathan Monapart, North Allegheny, finishing in second place at 132. Casey Walker finished in sixth place at 106 pounds. And then at 215 pounds, you had Aiden Buggy finishing in fourth place.
Well, so first of all, Greg, I mean, I'm surprised you wanted to do the show today after calling two matches today at Pitt. You called Pitt versus Army and Pitt versus Michigan, and I heard you on the call when Cole Matthews beat Miocic. I mean, what was the atmosphere like? I mean, before we even jump into this.
I mean, it was fantastic. Pretty quiet throughout the day, and as far as at Pitt goes, but boy, I mean, everybody was going crazy whenever Cole Matthews. He just had a great second period, and I think for Miocic, Matthews is a matchup problem because Matthews is so good at defending. He's not one of those guys who's going to explode and take a lot of shots. He's going to take your shot and then start to funk roll and get into crazy situations. So I think that kind of, messed with Miocic a little bit in the first period because it was tied at three after one. But his riding in the second period was just unreal. I mean, he and several other Pit wrestlers did a great job of riding in the two matches today, but Matthews was just fantastic. And then getting those four near falls in the second just really put the match away and had everybody going crazy throughout the whole third period.
Yeah, I mean, it looked like a lot of fun. So, but also fun for me was this weekend. I was at the Midwinter Mayhem. We streamed the quarters, semis, and finals there. The finals were awesome. And as you mentioned, not a lot of WPIAL power in the boys division, but in the girls division there was, and that was a lot of fun. I mean, at one point, Canamac girls were all around the mat, and it was a raised mat, so it was like the NCAAs. It was up off the air. It was super cool. So I was excited to talk about that on WarUp tonight because, the boys, yeah, North Allegheny was there. Nathan Monapart was in the finals. But, it was just a lot of fun to see the different levels of WPIAL wrestlers there. You had North Allegheny, you had Kiski, you had Canamac, you had girls from all over Western PA that were there. So it was super fun. And it was a really cool environment, and that's archived on our Rockfin page. How they did it for the finals, they did because there was obviously the girls' weights aren't the exact same as the boys, and some of the weights they combined. So it was a boys, and then a girls match, and a boys, girls, or something like that, and it was mixed in with it. So it was almost like one large finals of boys and girls. Bella DeVito from Kiski area, who from covering her, she was in the finals. Toby Atwood from Armstrong, she was in the finals. She did lose. Lena Rumpler from North Allegheny, who was on our True Power card, she was in the finals. So it was just a lot of fun to see the energy and excitement level of all the girls wrestling at the Midwinter Mayhem. And I think next year this is going to attract a ton of girls wrestlers, especially after you see them up on the big stage like that in IUP. That was really neat.
Yeah, and you look in all 13 wrestlers from the WPIL on the girls' side coming home with a medal. They only did top four in the girls' section, and that's great to see when you have so many medalists out of what was like seven different weights. So only 28 medalists, about half coming from the WPIL, and that's considering you have teams all over, right? Central part of the state, and Du Bois, Athens, but then Easton as well. Pretty much all over. To see such a strong showing from the WPIL is just fantastic.
Yeah, and like I said, it was just nice to have that atmosphere for the girls because I mean, oftentimes it's almost like an afterthought and they're sprinkled in, and this was very inclusive. They were right there with the boys, and like I said, it was really cool to see all the girls that were kind of. And on the broadcast, TC Warner said this. He was like, the girls just looked like they're having fun, a lot more fun than the boys did. So that may be telling you something. And the wrestling was really tough too. So that always helps.
Yeah, it's almost like the boys are stressed out in a way, right? The high pressure situations of being in that final. Where on the other side, the girls are they're happy to have the sport, getting closer and closer to being sanctioned. So they're just happy to just see more girls out there and want to have fun with it. It's definitely a great sight.
Yeah, for sure it is. And like I said, I think it's just going to grow and continue to grow further. And it's only going to make things better. And it's kind of crazy to me still that we're talking about this and girls, wrestling hasn't been sanctioned yet, but we're getting very, very close to the 100 teams. So we just got to keep on chipping away at that.
In addition to the Midwinter Mayhem, also had a number of county tournaments. Like I mentioned, you had the Tri-County Tournament, which shows Washington, Greene, and Fayette. Westmoreland County Tournament, which in a lot of years has been almost like it's its own region tournament just because of how strong it is, and sometimes even stronger than some state tournament. And then also the MAC tournament, which is pretty much essentially like the Beaver Lawrence County type tournament. So a lot of the WPIAL taking mats here this past weekend, and then the Allegheny County tournament coming up here next weekend. The Westmoreland County, your champion team-wise was Latrobe. Hempfield finished in second, Kiski in third. Wasn't much of a close team race as it came down to it, as Latrobe really distanced themselves with 252 points. Hempfield was the next with 188. And part of that was with 4 champions in all. A couple of them you expected, but one you may not have expected, and kind enough to join us on the show, is Jack Pletcher. Jack Pletcher had a great tournament throughout the entire tournament and had a big finals match where he had to take on Chase Kranitz of Norwin, and he was able to pull out the 4-2 victory in that. And kind enough to join us now is Jack. Jack, congratulations on your Westmoreland County title.
Thank you.
Well, just talk a little bit about the tournament itself. Obviously, we want to hear about obviously more about your match with Chase, but kind of prior to that, how did you feel going into it, and what were your thoughts on your tournament overall?
Uh, you know, I felt great. I felt great all day. I was just able to get to all of my offense all day. I was able to just do what I wanted out there, and I didn't really have a problem. And then I was ready to rip for the finals. So
And when you got to that finals match, were you feeling pretty relaxed, pretty calm, out there taking
yeah,
on Chase?
yeah.
Awesome. And
Good.
I was just saying, and obviously, pulling out the overtime win, but as the match went on, did you feel like, okay, I feel pretty good about, where I'm at in this match?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I felt like I was able to control the match and point it in the direction where I wanted it to go, and I felt like I was doing a good job with that.
I'm sure at the Powerade, you didn't quite get the results you wanted. You wrestled well, but obviously a very tough weight class at your weight, and coming up just one win shy of getting a medal.
Yeah.
Talk a little bit about Powerade and what you kind of improved upon over the last week to be able to come back and have a strong showing this week.
Um, yeah. So obviously Powerade was tough. I mean, it's a one heck of a tournament, but uh, just after that, day after I was back in practice, and just kept working on the same things I've been working on, but really just continue to move my feet and just continue to practice and getting better every day.
Absolutely. Talk a little bit about your team, Latrobe. You guys come out with the team title in Westmoreland County. You guys had a strong showing at Powerade as well. But obviously you guys are coming into this. Waynesburg's at the top, but you guys are the next team, right? Talk a little
Yeah.
about your team overall and how you guys are feeling going here into January.
I mean, I think we're feeling great. I mean, we're doing great, and we all push each other in practice, and you know, we have a lot of young studs on that team that can really pull through when they need to pull through, and we have our veterans on that team that know what to do, and just everyone's pushing everyone, and it's really really nice to have.
And Jack, just talking about your progression as a wrestler. I mean, you've been close, right? But you've never been quite there. You've
Yeah,
come very close, and I think I've said this on the show before. It's like, you see glimpse of greatness, and then you're like head scratching. You're like, what's he doing? How much is that mental, and how much is that just you? Focusing and getting ready and preparing for different people's styles, because I feel like at your weights that you've been at, you've had a whole variety of styles that you've had to kind of wrestle through and kind of, learn how to get through.
yeah. I mean, early in my career, I think a lot of it was mental. Um, and I just wasn't there yet. I mean, I wasn't mature enough and stuff yet. But I mean, I really worked hard this summer and finally got it through my head. It's just a wrestling match. You just go out there just like it's practice. I think that's what really helped me. I finally got through to myself that it's all mental, and I can really just go out there and do what I can do in practice, and it's not going to change. So, I mean, that being said, I mean, and just in practice, how you said wrestling people with different styles and stuff like that. Um, you know, in the Latrobe practice room and everywhere else I go, I mean, I get partners that are always taller than me. One, because I'm short, and I get people that are short and stocky just like me. So just finding different partners to go with and stuff. I mean, that obviously helps a lot. So.
And you had mentioned just obviously with wrestling in the summer, you wrestled some of your best you've ever wrestled in the summer, this past summer, right? Especially in freestyle. I mean, you were beating
Yeah.
people, you were beating a lot of tough guys. Was the pressure maybe a little bit off in the summer? I mean, you committed to Pitt kind of shortly after that. So, we're expecting a kind of free carrying Jack Pletcher coming into the season, especially after the freestyle season you had.
Yeah, I mean, freestyle is fun. I mean, that was the first time I ever wrestled freestyle, and uh, I was just able to go out there and let it fly because I've never wrestled freestyle, so I was like, just have fun, and I was doing really well, and I think a lot of that was helped with my brother because I mean he's getting into freestyle a lot now too, and I was just able to work with him, and I think he helped me a lot mentally with that, and I was just able to go out there and do stuff without having any hesitation because I was like, oh, it's not like regular season stuff where I'm working to build my name and stuff like that. Really, I was, but it wasn't like I was gonna lose a state title or
Right.
something like that or not going to states. It was it was freestyle and I was able to wrestle like it was in the practice room.
You mentioned Luke, and how one difficult is it being the younger brother of Luke Pletcher, but also the benefits that you get from having Luke. I mean, it's like you can't say the name Pletcher without saying Luke, and
Yeah.
that's gotta be a hard thing as a younger brother to be like, God, I'm bigger than you, Luke. I'm taller than you, but yet like everyone tells me like I got to be more like you. That's got to be a pretty hard thing to do, right?
Um, yeah, I mean, when I was younger, it bothered me a little bit, just jokes and stuff like that. And I'm still getting jokes all the time. I mean, Vinny makes fun of me constantly for it and stuff like that. But now, I mean, I just embrace it, and I mean, it helps me so much. I mean, I have one of the best wrestlers that I can talk to about anything,
Right.
and he can just help me with everything. So I mean, we're texting all the time before all my matches and stuff like that, and just to have someone like that, oh, I mean, it's so nice.
So, speaking of this year and kind of where you want to be and where you want to go, 152 and the WPIAL is freaking stacked. I mean,
It is tough.
Chase is obviously one of them, but you wrestled Nico Taddy at Powerade. You've got Kellen Laffey. You've got Dylan Evans. I mean, the list goes on, and you're like, how am I supposed to get through to this? Right. I mean, it's
Yeah.
crazy. So, I mean, I know we talked about like the mental edge and not getting too worried about who you're wrestling, but you're looking at a meat grinder to even get out of the region. How does that factor into how you wrestle, and what does that mean for you preparing, especially looking at that match you had with Nico Taddy, where, you just weren't able to garner any offense, how much you go back to drawing board and say, hey, this is what I need to do to beat these high level guys.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly what I did. I went straight back to the drawing board, and I was like, all right, I mean, I get through these guys, I'm at the state tournament, and that's just one match at a time, And, it's not that, like, I'm just worried about those guys. I'm worried about my game all the way around. So, I mean, nothing really changed, but other than, I mean, it's stacked. So, I mean, I just got to keep working and, just keep practicing. And if I wrestle how I can, I'll get through. And I just know that, it ended up how it needed to end up.
So you talked about just how it, looking at it stacked. Also, the pit recruiting class that's coming in is stacked, right? I mean, obviously Dayton Pitzer, Max Stout, and Briar Priest, and then obviously you. That's gonna be pretty cool. I know I saw some pictures of you guys all on your recruiting trip and stuff, and it's like, man, like all these WPIAL guys going to pit. Clearly, Luke, I'm sure, played a factor into that. But how cool is it to have two guys from right down the road in Briar and Dayton, joining you to be a Pit Panther?
It's great. I mean, I've known them since I was 8 years old. So, I mean, going down there with people that I already consider friends, it's great because it's kind of a stress reliever. I already have things in common with them. So, I mean, that's really nice. And I know they're really committed to the sport and how they practice and what they do outside of it. So, I mean, that's really nice to just know that I have someone that's, pretty much just like me going down there, and that's already my friend. I can just kind of go down there and not change too much.
Yeah.
Well, Jack, we really appreciate you joining us on the show. Congratulations on your Westmoreland County title, and we're excited to see not only yourself but the rest of the Latrobe team, see how you guys continue to put it together as you guys get ready for the second half of the season.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Jack Pletcher kind enough to join us on WarUp on the WPIAL, and Jeff, obviously a strong showing for Latrobe in the Westmoreland County Tournament. It started really right away at those first three weight classes where they pick up three titles. 106 pounds, you had Luke Willishow. He had the win over Ty Kapusta. They were really on a collision course with one another, and Willishow ends up winning by fall. It was a 4-4 match before that fall comes, and Willishow really kicked things off for Latrobe.
Yeah, I mean, you look at, just like you said, the first three. I mean, you had two falls by Latrobe wrestlers in the first and second match. Luke Willishow and Tyler Kapusta, these guys could wrestle 10 times, and, 5 out of those 10 times is going to end in a fall like this, because Luke Willishow is much like Gabe. He's funky. He likes to get, mix it up on the mat. And I think these two are very, very close. These two are going to do some battles for a couple weeks in a row, I think. I would not be surprised to see this happen in Hershey. So, like you said, that was a big way to start it. But then Leo Joseph, kind of the guy that is not talked about as much, especially with the Latrobe team where you have so many deep guys here. He gets a fall in under a minute over Giovanni Beatrice from Derry to win the 113. And then to follow that up, Vinny Kilkeary, who had a really not good power raid for his standard, beats the power raid champion, right? He beats Troy Homan, who won the weight class in Sudden Victory, a guy he wrestled about 9 times last year. So, Vinny rearing that ship in the right direction, I mean, that's huge for him because he loses that match to Troy, and it's like you look at seed points for WPIALs, and then, you're getting into the state tournament, and I think mentally that was a really big win for him, just to get that win over Troy Homan, especially after how good Troy looked in the Powerade tournament.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And obviously, Troy Homan also had to get a big win over Cooper Hornack of Burl in the semifinals, a 5-2 win just to get to that point. But yeah, I mean, we expected these two to meet, this past weekend, and Kilkiri gets it done, and really helps solidify himself in that weight class. And now you're looking at it like, okay, we're probably gonna see these guys a couple more times. So, buckle up and get ready because these are two of the best, not only in the WPIAL but in the state here in Kilkiri and Homan.
For sure. And then it's funny because you go right from that right into 3 Hempfield champions, right? You have 3
That's
Latrobe
right.
champions and then 3 Hempfield champions right in a row, including Briar Priest over Nate Roth, who they wrestled just a week prior to that. Ethan Lieben at 126 over Hayden Coy, 9-0. Ethan Lieben is a guy who hasn't really had the name recognition across the state, that is. In the WPIAL, people know him, but from the state standpoint, I think he's going to be a problem. I think he's going to have a really good postseason. He had a good Super 32. I think, he's just feeling more confident and comfortable. And Eli Carr is a guy who's a sophomore, was at Kiski Prep last year, didn't wrestle at all, comes into Hempfield, and now, he's looking like a guy who's going to push some of the top guys at 132, because 132 is – it's not as deep. We talk about 152. It's not nearly as deep as 152. And he pins Ryan Klingensmith, who's tough, right? So,
Yeah.
2 huge wins for Hempfield, followed up by Briar Priest getting that revenge on Nate Roth.
Yeah, 2 guys like you mentioned. Expect a lot of big things out of Lieben on the state level this year, and Carr, like you mentioned, doesn't get that recognition, but he definitely deserves it after the way he wrestled this past weekend. Briar Priest, that was actually a match on Wednesday. Nate Roth and Latrobe team beating Hempfield on Wednesday, followed up 3 days later, and Priest beats Roth 10-3. So maybe a bit of a wake-up call for Briar Priest that he may have needed. But he also, in the meantime, picked up in the semifinals, and it was a 1-0 match until that point. But Jameson Pokliembo of Mount Pleasant, Pokliembo comes back for third, and he's a guy who. Obviously I know we talk probably a lot more about AAA than AA, but Pokliembo won a WPIAL title last year, and he doesn't get a lot of talk last year either, but I kind of made himself known a little bit after winning the WPIAL title, and I think he had a strong power rate. I think he was a win away from medaling, and now he's here, and he finishes third place to 2 guys who are 2 of the best in the state in AAA. So somebody that he's having a strong showing thus far this year.
Yeah, I mean, I saw Poklembo at the Panther Holiday and at Powerade, and both really good tournaments for him. And I agree with you. I think especially in the WPIAL in Westmoreland County, gets lost in the shuffle when you have Dayton Pitzer and then the slew of Hempfield Latrobe wrestlers. Jameson's going to have a good year for sure. I mean, like you said, he won a WPIAL title, and he finished behind 2 of the top guys in the state. So no shame there. And I'm not going to be surprised when he's pushing for a state medal come March.
145, somebody not from Latrobe or Hempfield was able to win a title before Pletcher comes in with another. But Finn Solomon of Franklin Regional, he gets this title, a 2-1 win over Lucas Capusta of Hempfield. And then we talked about it just with Jack Pletcher, a big win over Chase Kranitz, 4-2. And really, I think, that really complicates things at 152 because, we talk about Kellen Laffey and Dylan Evans, and you thought, okay, Chase Kranitz is probably right there, number 3. But now Pletcher's in that mix. I mean, you got 4. They're back to the normal numbers, I believe, right, for the state tournament. So 4 going from the WPIAL.
Yeah.
So you got 4. You got 5 studs. So one's not going.
Yeah, I mean, and he's always been there. I mean, it's not like he needed the win over Chase Krantz to get him there. Jack's always been there. It's just, Chase is a guy who has a PIAA state medal to his name already. Jack's never made it to a state tournament. Right, so that's where you say, okay, where are you going to be come end of February, early March, right? And for Jack, this is, I mean, and he talked about it early in his career. A lot of it was mental. And, for his mental, game, this is a huge win for him. I know I can beat Chase because I did it before. That match with Nico Taddy, going back to the drawing board, like he said, and trying to clean things up. But it's so hard because you look at the state rankings. At 152, the WPIAL occupies 5 of the top 10, right? So somebody is not going to make it, and we very well could have 4 state medalists all, from the WPIAL at 152, and I would expect so, considering the depth that we have there. So, yeah, for Jack, it was a huge win for him. Chase coming down from 160, I was a little bit surprised because I just expected him to be at 60 for the year, considering he was there last year, and a lot less depth at 60 than there is 52. But he obviously feels good there and wrestled there at Powerade and now at the Westmoreland County Tournament. So, I'm excited to see how this all shakes out, because who knows, somebody's going to be missing a trip, right? And there's going to be a lot of good kids that don't end up making it there. And we say that every year too.
Yeah, definitely. And we'll see what happens. I mean, who knows? I mean, after this tournament, maybe Kranitz rethinks it and says, hey, you know what, maybe I need to go back up to 160. It's something that obviously, could be talked about, because you have, 160 has its depth too, right? You have Jared Kessler, Sean Taylor, Enzo Merlocki, but guys that he's hung with and been able to beat before. So, maybe that's something that, he looks at and says, okay, maybe 160 is a better weight for me after these last couple of weekends.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt. And like you said, I mean, he's beaten Enzo before, and those two have gone back and forth. They wrestled in Powerade. They wrestled in postseason. And you see Enzo winning it over Wesley Stahl of Penn Trafford 10-6 to earn a Westmoreland County Tournament championship. So you're right. Maybe you say, hey, maybe I go back up. I don't know. Those are tough decisions and conversations, obviously, between a coach and the parent to try to figure out. But obviously a good showing for Jack Pletcher. 172, I thought Logan Hoffman made a statement, beating Sam Snyder from Latrobe 7-0. 172, we talked about depth. You have Rocco Welsh, clearly the guy. But then you have, Matt Furman, who's been super close. But then it's really wide open, right? And I think Logan Hoffman is kind of one of those guys that is going to be able to either punch through and make some noise in the postseason, or somebody else is, like Christian Scheller from Mars, or I don't know who else it is, but 172 is just not, it's not 152, right?
Yeah, and I think Logan Hoffman came out and said, hey, don't forget about me, because we haven't seen
sure.
much from Bell Vernon, up until now. So,
right.
To come in and have a strong showing, and obviously his teammate's still on the shelf, but we'll see if he's able to come back here, time for the postseason. But that opened up the door at 189, right? Giuliano Marion of Franklin Regional, he wins a title. 215, Dayton Pitzer just pins Corey Borio of Latrobe in the final, which it's just shocking to me. Corey Borio's top 5 in the state in AAA, but yeah, it's just how good Pitzer is. And then William McChesney does the same, pinning his way through and gets a fall at 285.
Yeah, I mean, Billy moved up to number 1 in the state rankings by virtue of Matt Cruz beating Sean Kinney of Nazareth, and I think those three are at a three-headed monster between Kinney, Cruz, who they could wrestle tomorrow in a dual meet, and then Billy, who didn't wrestle Cruz in the state tournament last year. So, I mean, Billy's right in the mix. So, and going back to Pitzer, you said it's shocking. I'm done being shocked at how good Dayton Pitzer is. I expect it. I expect him to pin his way from now until March. And maybe we shouldn't put that expectations on somebody, but he's really damn good. So I expect it.
I was going to say, do you expect him to go 6 minutes in any single match the rest of the season?
I mean,
until the Dapper Dan,
maybe, but I doubt it. I mean, he pinned the number 2 guy in the Panther Holiday Classic in like the second period. So, I mean, I would highly doubt that he makes it 6 minutes, or I should say the opponent makes it 6 minutes against Dayton Pitzer, in my opinion.
Yeah, until the Pittsburgh Wrestling Classic, right?
Correct, which he will be on.
That's right. I honestly, and pardon me, and if that's the case, I think we might as well already hand him the OW for the state tournament, because that would be his third state title. Probably would have been a 4-time state champ if not injured, and pinning his way through a state tournament. I mean, I don't think there's anyone who could have a more outstanding tournament. We'll see, but I think that's should be already. Yeah, they might as well already engrave his name on the trophy.
Easy there. all right, let's not get ahead of ourselves, right? Because crazier things have happened before. Don't jinx poor Dayton Pitzer. He already had 1 year that he had to lose.
That's
Great.
true. That is true.
Talking about the team, and I have to bring this up because Latrobe, they are not just knocking on the door of the WPIAL. They're trying to kick it down. Latrobe wins the team title here, 252 points. Second place was Hempfield at 188. So we're talking about, I'm not good at math, but that's a pretty good difference in team points. You're not talking about a couple points. Having Nate Roth back in the lineup is huge for Latrobe. And to be honest, they are looking really good at the right time as we get into the dual portion of our season. So, let's not put the cart before the horse here. But man, Latrobe and Waynesburg, that could be a war should those guys see each other.
Yeah, I mean, I know, and just looking at the state level too, I mean, District 11, Bethlehem Catholic and Nazareth are strong, but I could really see two teams here finishing in the top 4 for the WPIAL in the state because I think that's how good Latrobe is. They're going to battle Waynesburg. It's going to be a great matchup. Waynesburg has obviously the high-end talent. They're missing the studs that from a year ago that really put them over the top, but yeah, I mean, I know Connellsville was also in that mix. I mean, to me, I feel like there's a pretty clear cut, though, top 3 in the WPIAL, you could say, with Connellsville being that third team. And then I think you have that next echelon, right, of, Cannon McMillan, North Allegheny, Hempfield, even maybe throw in a West Allegheny in the mix.
West Allegheny, Kiski.
Yeah,
right.
Kiski, right. But, I mean, to me, it's, Wayne, I thought there might not be that separation between Latrobe and Connellsville, but I mean, after this past weekend and seeing what they have now with the full lineup, I mean, my goodness, I think they're closer to Waynesburg than they are to Connellsville.
Oh, no doubt. I would agree with you there. And it's hard to say, back in December, how a team's going to shake out and how people are going to wrestle and how lineups are going to fill out. And I agree with you. Latrobe is much closer to Waynesburg than they are to Connellsville. And I'm a pretty huge Connellsville fan. I'm pretty big on Bill Swink and what they're doing down there in Connellsville. So, it's going to be a lot of fun to see how it shakes out, especially with Waynesburg and Latrobe, depending on how they meet up.
Speaking of Waynesburg, wrestling in the Tri-County Tournament this past weekend, and they actually needed the last 2 titles to win the team championship. They finished in first place with 202.5 points. Burgestown, number 2 at 197, and Beth Center in third with 170.5. It was a really good showing from the 2 AA schools. Cannon McMillan finishing in fourth place, but it took an Eli Makel overtime win in 215, and then Noah Tustin getting a win at 285. Prior to that, Burgestown was leading the team standings. So that's how back and forth it was at the Tri-County Championships. And overall, I mean, Waynesburg didn't have Mac Church, which obviously that's a championship right there. They also had Joe Simone at 126, which means Anders Faturos didn't wrestle. So you're missing a couple of guys for Waynesburg in that Tri-County. But, Burgestown gave them all they could handle.
I mean, statement performance for Burgestown, if you ask me. Just looking at how well they battled and wrestled. And, I mean, Noah Tustin beating Ty Banco 5-3. I mean, that was a pretty big win. Ty Banco's been kind of the guy, especially in that section, moving up to heavyweight this year, both of them. So it was very close. Like you said, Joe Simone at 126. So he has a great power rate. He finishes third in power rate at 120, ahead of Kilkiri. He bumps up to 126, and he beats state medalist Chris Fargo of Bentworth 1-0, right? So that was a huge win for Simone, and he was up a weight, right? I mean, I don't know if he's going to stay down at 20 or not, or I'm not sure what the situation is in the room, but that was a big win for him. Kai Sheptick kind of followed up
and Simone had to beat Gavin Suica of Burgestown 3-0 in the semifinals.
Right.
So it wasn't even just one match that he had. I mean, he had 2 really big
Tough
wins
guys,
to get a title.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And Kai Sheptick, he had a big win over Brady Joling of Chartiers Valley, who had a good power rate tournament, and Halp comes out or I'm sorry, Sheptick comes out, beats Thomas Allison. TJ Allison from Trinity 5-3. Senepal wins over Mazenko 1-0 down at 106, and Halp just kind of dominates Luke Dunlap from South Fayette. So, there was a lot of good matches here early on, and then Joey Senepal follows it up at 132, beating a very tough Blake Riener from Trinity. And again, like you said, that's without Mac Church, but still, Burgettstown, we talked about the AAA team race. Is Burgettstown going to push Burrell? I mean, I between them, Best Center, I don't know. Throw Quaker Valley in there as well. I think it's gonna be interesting. It's more wide open than AAA for sure.
Yeah, I mean, is this the year? I guess the question always is, and we ask it every single year, and that's I guess that's why we have a podcast every year, because the conversation could keep coming up. Is this the year that Burrell gets knocked off? And, obviously, I think they started to have a stronger showing. Burrell did at the Westmoreland County Tournament. They got a couple of guys back in their lineup that weren't there prior to this past weekend. So you're starting to see Burrell get a little bit stronger and get a little bit of their depth back into their lineup. So we'll see how it all shakes out here in a month or so. But, yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking back to last year in the WPIAL finals, looking at the lineups straight on head-to-head, and it was like, okay, you do the math here. Burgettstown is either going to lose by 3 or they could even pull this out. It ended up being a little more lopsided because Burrell, like they always do, get a couple of big upsets, right? Like Slovic getting pinned
right.
By Barr, where he ends up turning it around and getting a win over him in the individuals. That's a 9-point swing. Gavin Suika lost in the team portion. He ends up winning the match in the individuals. That's another 6-point swing. Those were a couple of matches that Burgettstown expected to win. And if they win those, it's a lot closer, or they may even, win. And this, you're talking about that's a Burrell team that finished top 4 in the state.
Yeah, right.
So that's where Burgettstown was last year, and they didn't lose much. They lose Shane Kemper, but that's outside of that, they didn't lose much.
No,
they brought everybody back. So
and Burrell has 2 guys to replace Ian Oswalt and AJ Corrado. Yeah,
2. One's a state champ, one's a state runner-up. I mean, to me, I think Burgettstown is the team. I think, but I also think Best Center is going to be a challenging team. Mount Pleasant's going to be a challenging team. They had a good Westmoreland County tournament. Quaker Valley, like you mentioned, they got a strong team. So AA's got some depth this year that we haven't seen in past years.
I mean, it is like Groundhog's Day. Is anyone going to beat Burrell? It's like we've been doing this show for almost like 10 years, and feels like every year that is always the topic of conversation. Getting back to Tri-Cata, I was impressed with some of the Best Center guys. Tyler Barish wins at 152.
Well, and you mentioned Joey Senepal, and I wanted to mention this too. He also, not only did he beat Blake Riener, but he also had a big win over Kyle McCullum, a Best Center in the semifinals. He beats him 5-0. And not only did he beat him, he just manhandled him. Like he owned that entire match. Did Senepal. I was really impressed with how Joey Senepal wrestled this past weekend.
So, in addition to those 2 Best Center wins at 145 or 152 and 160, 172, we had a rematch from the Powerade tournament where Rocco Welsh beats Rune Lawrence, this time 6-2. Greg, tell us a little bit about that match, because 6-2 on the scoreboard, it's like, all right, he was in control of the match, but was Rune any closer than he was before at Powerade?
I think he was closer at Powerade than he was in this match.
Gotcha.
Rocco, honestly, I think he raised it up another level. I mean, he got a takedown in the first. He got a takedown in the second. Rocco chose neutral, so he didn't go underneath of Rune. But, takedown first, takedown the second. And then Rune decided to go top in the third, and Rocco gets a reversal. So, it was just honestly, Rocco definitely, turned it up another level, and he ended up getting Outstanding Wrestler of the tournament for it. And he definitely looks strong.
So one of the my favorite things to do is talk about sleepers and folks that are under the radar. And at 189, the freshman from Ringgold, Jake Conroy, he pinned Broxton Dean in a minute 2. This is a guy who does not get a whole lot of, Ringgold just isn't, it's not Canamac or Waynesburg. But this guy was a PJW or a Keystone State tournament finalist last year. And he's just been wrestling, pretty much lights out in his freshman campaign. But this was his first real test within the WPIAL, beating Broxton Dean by fall. I like Jake Conroy a lot, and I think 189 again. We talked about at least the depth here. Of course, we have maxed out. We have Brian Finnerty, but I think Jake Conroy is a guy who people should not overlook, especially from a guy from Section 4 coming out of Ringgold. I think he's going to make some noise.
Yeah, and a couple of AA sleepers to pay attention to. Chase Framelli of Jefferson Morgan. He won a title, and he beats Ryan Celestia of Fraser 5-0. Celestia actually came into this one unseeded, feeds into Kovac of Burgettstown, and actually pins Kovac. Kovac was the 3rd seed and gets all the way to the finals and was dominant in the finals before losing to Framelli. Those are two guys, Celestia from Fraser, a freshman, and then Framelli of Jefferson Morgan are two guys to watch out for. Another Jefferson Morgan guy who wrestled really well and came into it unseeded, Johnny Gilbert, finished in 3rd place, but he loses by major decision to Tyler Barish 16-8, but don't let the score fool you because it was pretty close. I want to say it was 4-4 or 6-6. I mean, Gilbert was hanging with Barish for a while before Barish ends up pulling away in that match. And then another guy at 150 or 160 pounds, you mentioned Trevor Pettit wins the title. He pins Braden Welsh of Fort Cherry. Welsh is a freshman.
Yep.
And I believe he's related to Rocco.
Yes, cousins.
Braden wrestled a great tournament as well. I think he came in as a 6th seed, but gets to the finals. So those are just some guys in AA that you want to keep an eye out on as we head into postseason time.
So when we talked about Waynesburg as a team and against a team like Latrobe, and we talked about those key wrestlers in each lineup, I think you can't ignore the fact that Waynesburg has to have top performances from Eli Makel and Noah Tustin at 215 and 285. And both these wrestlers deserve a ton of credit because they've wrestled in the Ironman, Beast of the East, Powerade, and they've come away with medals in most of them, which is insane because you're talking about 3 of the best tournaments in the nation. These are the difference makers, right? I mean, whatever happens at 120 and 126 between Simone and Fatoris, I think really it comes down to Eli Makel and Noah Tustin and what they're able to do against high-level guys. You talk about Nazareth. Well, Eli Makel and Chase Levy, that's a toss-up match in my opinion. Noah Tustin, Sean Kinney, obviously Sean Kinney's favored, but can Tustin, can he stay off his back, right? And both these guys ended up with big wins, right? One was in overtime, one was a 5-3 win. So, these guys are the difference makers, I think, especially when we talk about coming down in the team race.
Yeah, and then you even throw in at 189 a guy who got a medal at the Powerade, Brody Evans.
Right.
He's going to be just as big. And, you also talked about Jay Conroy. Conroy pinned Brody Evans in the semifinals to get to the final against Broxton Dean. So, yeah, I mean, Evans has turned it on another level. He's, a guy who was not much of a story in last year's state championship team, but he's really come on as a big guy who's, kind of filling the shoes. Obviously, you can't fill the shoes of a guy like Luca Augustine, but he's at least putting a competitive match every time out there for Waynesburg.
No, I mean he had a great Powerade. So you're right. I mean, serviceable is an understatement. I mean the guy's wrestling, he was wrestling well, and again, key component to that lineup.
Another tournament that happened was the MAC tournament from this past weekend. So you had the Westmoreland County, Tri-County, now the MAC as well. And, the MAC coming in mostly made up of Beaver County. I also believe Lawrence County plays into a part of that as well. But you had some big-time wins. You had Jack Kazala, Quaker Valley in this one. So you had a number of guys coming away with titles to help them win the title. They ended up with 223 points. And a part of that, I believe they had 5 champions in that. West Allegheny was number 2 with 176. Laurel at 169.5, finishing in 3rd. Montour was 4th. But the story here, Quaker Valley with a number of champions, and West Allegheny not too far behind.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the parity in double A, and Quaker Valley certainly made a statement here with their level of wins, because you look at the team standings, 223 for Quaker Valley, West Allegheny 176, and West Allegheny is pretty tough, right? So as a team, Quaker Valley is slowly building up. I mean, you got a three punch right out of the gate. Jack Cazales obviously at 13 and Logan Ritchie at 120. But then you throw in guys like Mason Demert at 172. He had a big win over Aaron DeLuca of Montour, 8-4. And then obviously Patrick Kutchember, he's going to Clarion. The kid's a stud, right? He gets a fall over Brennan Morgan of Central Valley to win the title. It was good to see Grant McKay back. Obviously he had to default out of the Powerade tournament, but he beats a tough Sean Taylor of West Allegheny, a guy who was a medalist at the Powerade tournament, pins him in 301. Nico Taddy, again, guy we talked about with Jack Pletcher. He had a nice convincing win, almost a tech fall, 14-1 over Isaiah Pisano of Hopewell, who I think is kind of a little bit under the radar here. Kevon Grace from Moon beats Bryce Rodriguez from Carlington, another guy who's kind of under the radar in Grace. Ty Waters continues to do what Ty Waters does, gets a fall in the first period over Chase Brandenburg of Carlington. So, the story here is the depth of Quaker Valley, right? And can Quaker Valley compete with a team like Burrell, like Burgettstown, and like you said, Mount Pleasant, you throw them in there, best center. I mean, I think they're in there, and certainly they had a great, MAC tournament. So this is kind of the writing on the wall for what's to come.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I'm interested to see how the lineups, really, shake out here between a Quaker Valley and a Burgettstown, for example. But there's 5 teams in Double A that, to me, it's like, hey, any of these can win on any given week. Right now, I like Burgettstown a lot, especially after their past weekend. But Quaker Valley and Mount Pleasant, they're not far behind.
No, not at all. And, I'm just excited to see, because this is the perfect time of the year. Early January is the perfect time of year when we talk about the teams shaking out and how everything kind of comes together. So those were 2 big performances between, Waynesburg and Burgettstown in the Tri-Cata. And then also, we talked about Quaker Valley in the MAC tournament. I don't believe we talked about the Bo Woods tournament here, Greg, and that had a mix of WPIAL and some teams from District 5 and 6. Mifflin County ends up winning the title there. Nico Finella from Indiana, he gets a 9-2 win in the finals at 106. Nico, we talked about Kapusta, we talked about Willowshell. Nico Finella is a guy I'm very familiar with. We had him on our team at the National Freestyle Duels. He was also at the Surge. The kid's a stud, right? But Indiana's not a team that goes to Powerade or is in, just a ton of competition, so we don't see him as much. But I think he's going to end up having a really good year. And Nina Walker from Plum had a nice win over Aiden Burford from Highlands by Tech Fall. Braden White from Highlands, a super tough freshman, beats a Blake Ulmer from Mifflin County, a guy who I thought had a good Conestoga Buckskin Classic tournament. Braden White is a guy, those Highlands kids, man, they have good youth. They have a good youth program, and we're starting to see some of them come out, obviously with both the Burford brothers, with Drake and Aiden, and now Braden White. Obviously not a team that we're really looking at, but certainly some individuals there that I think can make some noise.
Yeah, I mean, they wrestled good as a team, finished in 4th place here in the tournament and only a half point behind Plum, who finished in 3rd.
Right.
So Mifflin County ran away with it, but you look at, Corey area finishing in 2nd place and, only 8 points behind were Plum and Highlands. So, those 2 teams really came out and wrestled extremely well. And, yeah, you mentioned, Finella as well as Walker really dominating, their weight classes. So definitely some really good individual performances, and we'll see. We'll see how they shake out as far as, compared to the rest of the WPIAL once we get to that point.
Yeah, for sure. And, coming up this weekend, Greg, we got a lot of good action. The Escape the Rock tournament's taking place at Council Rock South High School. And, that's a tournament I normally go to. I've been there, I think, the last 3 times they've had it, and this year I'm opting out of going to Escape the Rock, and I'm going to Allegheny County's for good reason. We're streaming the Allegheny County Tournament from Fox Chapel High School, so we're super excited about that opportunity. We're going to be streaming the quarterfinals, semifinals, and finals, and medal round matches of the Allegheny County Tournament. And that's despite the fact that Escape the Rock is going to be super loaded, right? There's going to be a lot of tough individuals and teams at the Escape the Rock, including 2 from the WPIAL in Norwin and Fraser. Rune Lawrence, obviously, at 172. Chase Krantz at 152. So both of those guys earned a seed in that tournament. But, we're going to kind of focus a little bit on the Allegheny County because it's the county tournament that's like the only one that doesn't wrestle on the same weekend as all the others, right? It's the outlier of all the other tournaments, right?
And it's always been the case.
Yeah.
Every year it's you see Westmoreland and Tri-County all right the weekend after Powerade, they're in that mix and in the MAC tournament as well. And then Allegheny County's like, okay, you know what, guys, you guys have the spotlight. We'll have our own weekend. And that's exactly what they have here. It's it's going to be at Fox Chapel. You mentioned wrestling Friday and Saturday. I believe wrestling starts at 11:30 on Friday and then kicks back off at 10 a.m. on Saturday. Semifinals are set for 11:30, and then the finals, which they're one of the ones that do the finals on their own.
Yes.
The consolation finals are at 4, finals are at 6. I want to put this caveat though, Jeff, because we need to see what happens with the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers, shockingly, I mean, I never thought this would ever happen. Jacksonville Jaguars beating the Indianapolis Colts.
Well, let's not. We have to have a non-tie tonight, right?
That's right. That's what I was just going to add. Unless the miracle of a non-tie, which is kind of funny. I was reading an article like these 2 teams could say, hey, you know what? Let's just tie so we both get in and not have any injuries. But then the NFL could slap them with a automatic losses or something. It was crazy. But yeah, I mean, I say all that to say if the Steelers get in and they're in a wild card game, that could adjust the time. So
for sure. It could.
Be aware of that because it has happened in the past at the Allegheny County Tournament. Steelers played, I think, a 4:30 game or something, and they adjusted their time. So, be prepared for that, folks. And obviously, we'll have it here at PA Power all the time since we're streaming everything. So make sure you pay attention to that. But a lot of great individual matchups, and obviously the whole Allegheny County's coming into this one. Any weight classes in particular, Jeff, are you really excited about?
Yeah. I mean, for sure, I'm looking at 152, right? Because we have Kellen Laffey, who ascended to the top position, the top-ranked wrestler in the state of Pennsylvania, excuse me, after his Powerade performance. He's seated second behind Dylan Evans, which, I believe he should be seated behind Dylan Evans because Dylan Evans is a 2-time state medalist. Kellen Laffey hasn't made it to the state tournament yet, but Laffey is right there, right? And then you throw in Justin Ritchie too, and it's a pretty deep weight class. So that's really going to set the stage for where we're at in the WPIALs at 152, as we just mentioned earlier in the show with Jack Pletcher. At 106, Giovanni Schipani of North Hills drops from 113 to 106, so he adds another layer of depth at 106 with those freshmen like Nico Finella and Willishell, and then also Taya Capusta. So excited to see how he does at that weight. 120, Mason Kiernan, Logan Ritchie. Mason Kiernan, another one who I think is due to have pretty much a breakout year. This far, this season he's undefeated, 16-0. So obviously Bethel Park's not wrestling Powerade and those big tournaments, but still he's right there. Dylan Coy at 126, Antonio Walker from Plum, and Anthony Ferraro from Pine Richland. In addition to Dylan Bruce from Elizabeth Ford, who I think is kind of under the radar a little bit. Those 4 are going to make up a pretty tough 126. I feel like 126 this season overall has been pretty deep in all the tournaments I've covered. So I'm not surprised by that. What I am surprised about is Maddox Shaw goes up to 132. So he was at 132 for the King of the Mountain. That's where his only loss of the season was before Powerade, was to Scott Johnson from Muncie. Maddox Shaw now is back up at 132. I'm not saying that's where he's staying for the postseason, but we could have seen a Maddox Shaw Dylan Coy rematch. Instead, we could see a Maddox Shaw, Vince Citrano, Nathan Monapart, Bryce Rodriguez, Kyvan Grace from Moon. It's a pretty deep weight. 132 is now, with Shaw coming up. Citrano is undefeated, 11-0. Kyvan Grace is undefeated, 8-0. So, these are guys that are looking to prove something against Shaw, who just went nuts at Powerade, and it earned him a number 2 ranking in the state, right? So, how's he going to fare? I think he's probably going to fare well.
Yeah, those lightweight, Matt, you just mentioned. I mean, those lightweights definitely, take the cake as far as some of these, deep brackets. But I'm interested to see how Shaw does, and obviously Nathan Monapart has been having a great season thus far as well. And we haven't seen a lot from Vince Citrano, but Troy Homan will remind you that he's the guy that knocked him
Right.
off his freshman year about 6 times. So. He's definitely someone that can wreck some brackets as well. So it's definitely some very good weight classes here early on.
And including 189, who, includes guys like Maxed Out, Brian Finnerty, and Patrick Kutchember. So, we talked about the depth at like 52 and 26 and 32, but, look at 189 where you've got number 1 ranked Maxed Out. You got Brian Finnerty, you got Kutchember, all three of
the
those
top
guys.
4 in Powerade.
Right. 3 of the top 4 in Powerade. So, we're talking about some serious studs there coming in. So obviously 189 is one I'm really looking forward to. And there's some weight classes where there's just a lot to prove, right? Some of these wrestlers are just, not saying all of Allegheny County doesn't wrestle in big time tournaments, but, seeing guys from Highlands, North Hills, even Mount Lebanon and Pine Richland, and seeing these guys mix it up, we're going to see kind of where some of these guys are at. And guys like Kyvan Grace from Moon, who, last year had a good year, but, regular season wise, we didn't really see him a whole lot. So, this is going to be a good test for a lot of these wrestlers to see where they're at in comparison to some guys that have already done a lot in the regular season.
No doubt about it. Make sure you stick with us. We'll be streaming, like Jeff mentioned, the quarterfinals, semifinals, and the finals from Fox Chapel. Quarterfinals set for Friday, and then the wrestling action on Saturday. Quarterfinals, the projecting a start time 11:30, finish at around 6:30. So I'm not sure when the quarterfinals would start exactly. I'm thinking maybe like a 3 or 4 o'clock. Jeff, I don't know if you disagree.
Yeah, that's about the estimated time. And like you said, we're gonna obviously, since we're streaming it, we're gonna keep you updated and keep you abreast of everything that's going on time wise and stuff. So we're excited. This is our first time streaming the Allegheny County Tournament, and I think we're gonna have a good fun. And you're gonna be there, right, Greg? You're not going to leave me high and dry for the Steelers game, or?
No, definitely. I will be there on Saturday. Right. Friday, I've got a commitment to Pitt, but
got a commitment to Pitt. Oh my gosh, big time Greg here, big time in me for Pitt.
Hey, I say it there. Whoever asks first, and that's where I make the commitment. That's where I'm at. So right. I made the commitment a while back, and so I'll be there on Friday. Who knows? I mean, things could change though. This past Friday, they were supposed to be wrestling Penn, and that didn't happen.
Very true. And instead they got Army and they got Michigan, right? So
that's right.
I think I would have stuck to Penn, right? But yeah, I mean, we'll have some fun, and Saturday's a big day, so I appreciate you making Saturday reality for us. So, but it's gonna be a lot of fun from Fox Chapel.
Yep, absolutely. So stick with us. We'll have all the stream for you. And if there are updated times, we'll make sure to have those out to you, and make sure they're out on social media so you are aware, so you're following at the right times. Want to thank Jack Pletcher for joining us on the show, and congratulations again to him for winning a Westmoreland County title. And Jeff, anything else you wanted to add for this week's show?
No, just we made it through without any glitches, any issues, right? So I did something right. Give me some praise on the air, Greg, right? I fixed something, right? And we had no issues. So that was pretty cool. I'm pretty happy about that, Greg.
Praise, but you gave me crap for the first 2 weeks when, we found out via Troy Holmes.
Listen, I think you were to blame this first week, and I think I was to blame the other week. So let's just agree to disagree that I fixed it, right? And Yeah. So it is what it is, Greg. So I'm excited, man. It was a great show. Things are starting to come together for us, or for the WPIAL. So I'm excited to see where things go from here, because I think we're gonna have a lot of exciting matches and dual meets coming up. So as Chris Smith would say, buckle up, wrestling fans. We're coming at you.
Yes, we are. A lot of great duels coming up this week, and obviously the Allegheny Counties and Escape the Rock this weekend. So we'll have all that recap for you next week, and look ahead to the following week as wrestling just continues here as we get into the heart of the January month and get set for postseasons coming up here in the beginning of February, and then into individuals from there. So,
For sure.
For Jeff Upson, I'm Greg Warnock. We appreciate you listening in to War Up on WPIAL.